The church bells bit the rain like teeth as Mira stood in ivory and frost, her breath a trembling ghost. Cale stepped forward, wolf quiet in a human suit, the scar at his throat pale as winter bark. The vows paused. The storm held its breath. A boy no older than 7 pointed from the doorway and said, "Mom?" The room split, whispers scattered like startled starlings across pews. Cale's eyes flashed amber, a flicker too quick for all but Mira. He said, "There's danger coming." She said, "From whom?" He answered, "From me." The candles guttered as if ashamed, and the violin stumbled but played on. Mira's hands crushed the bouquet until stems snapped and green bled. Cale stepped back, a monarch abdicating in slow motion, rain loud as drums on glass. "I cannot choose you over the pack," Cale said. "Not today." The confession fell like glass. Mira did not cry. The rain did it for her. The town would say it began with the boy, but truth started years earlier in a forest that remembered Cale's first howl. Mira left the church, veil snagging on wet brick like a trapped moth. Every step told her the world had been edited without her consent. She thought of constellations counted on a quiet roof and promises sketched in air. "You swore," Mira said, "to rain and stone, not expecting mercy." "Wolves," answered thunder, with a hymn older than law. Cale watched from an alley shadow, duty stitching, shut the place her name had opened. He said, "Run," too soft for her to hear, then turned toward pines that enforced oaths with teeth. The violin finally fell silent, and the town breathed like a swimmer breaking surface. The storm did not forgive. It only paused to listen. The elders waited at the timberline, coats black as wet ravens, and eyes bright with stormlight. Cale approached like a condemned king whose crown was obligation. Elder Rovan said, "The rival pack moves by dawn." Elder Mirai said, "They smelled her at the church." Cale said, "Mira is not leverage, she is," and swallowed the word as if naming it would break the world. The boy, Leo, peeked from behind Rovan's coat, rain making commas in his hair. Leo said, "Will she be safe?" Cale knelt, suit soaking, and said, "I will see to it." The elders heard a promise. Cale felt a prayer. In town, Mira traded silk for her mother's boots and borrowed courage like a coat that almost fit. The forest listened and remembered everything. The tavern windows fogged with gossip when Mira stepped in, hair a damp crown and resolve a new spine. Bartender Hesta said, "He left you for a howl." Mira answered, "He left me for people who would die without him." The room quieted, shame briefly becoming etiquette. "Ancha." A hunter with a silver buckle smirked, but stopped when Mira's gaze met his like flint on steel. She borrowed a map, circled the old logging road, and whispered to herself, "Find the truth before it finds you." Outside, rain thinned to a whisper as the town exhaled. In the forest, Cale loosened his tie as dawn pressed against the storm. The war would not wait for love to catch up. On the ridge, Cale listened to the rival pack move like floodwater through pine. Elder Marira said, "They want the town." Cale said, "They want the ones I love." He shed his jacket, breath turning air into ghosts. "We keep them from the church road. No blood if we can help it." Rovan said, "No mercy if we cannot." A howl crested the hills, and wolves below braided into one dark ribbon. Back in her mother's boots, Mira followed the logging road, the map a damp blossom in her pocket. She did not know she walked between armies. She only knew love had left a door open in her, and the wind was coming through. Morning arrived like an apology unfinished. Mira stepped into the hush after the storm. The forest rinsed clean, her dress replaced by a wool coat and a hunter's belt she hoped she'd never need. She practiced the word "why" in 5 different tones, none of them fitting. A doe flickered through bracken, vanishing like a secret. Somewhere ahead, a branch snapped with intent. Cale moved along a parallel ridge, muscles remembering the language of the wild. He said, "Keep the road empty," to the patrol, and the wind scattered his command down the slope. Leo trailed stubbornly behind, defiance written in each small stride. "I can help," Lio said. Kale said, "You can listen." In the village, church bells rang for what should have been breakfast cake. Instead, they measured absence. The first trap was not claws but kindness. A white scarf fluttered on a thorn, waving like surrender. Mira reached for it, and the snare sang up from the ferns, wire biting her wrist. Pain flashed hot, she swallowed the cry. Kale heard the cruel music of metal and ran, the world narrowing to a tunnel, ending in Myra. He found her kneeling, eyes fierce despite blood tracing her glove. "So, this is your diplomacy?" Mira said. "This is their invitation," Kale answered. He cut the wire with a hunter's knife, his touch careful, his face unreadable to anyone but her. "You shouldn't be here," Kale said. "Then tell me where I should be," she said. "And make it true." They hid beneath a fallen cedar while enemy scouts padded past, voices low and wrong, like prayers turned inside out. "Take the church first," one said. "Smoke out the Alpha's bride," another hissed, and Mira's jaw hardened at the title that wasn't hers anymore. Kale's hand hovered near hers, a ghost of comfort he didn't dare give. "My pack will divert them," Kale whispered. "And what am I?" she asked. "A reason to fight that makes the fighting worse," he answered. A pine cone rolled, tiny thunder, and Lio froze behind moss, eyes wide. Mira caught his stare, her own softening. "Stay quiet," she mouthed. The scouts moved on. The forest let out the breath it had been holding. When danger passed, the argument arrived. "You could have told me," Mira said. "I was trying to save you from what I am," Kale replied. "You are what I chose," she said. His eyes flickered like a man seeing his reflection for the first time. "If they take me, the pack fractures. If they take you, I fracture." The logic was clean and cruel. She laughed once, without kindness. "So we both lose." His almost smile belonged to roads never taken. "I will walk you back," Kale said. "I will not go back," Mira answered. "I will go forward or nowhere." The choice hung between them like fruit, neither dared to pick. The smoke rose first, a gray finger pointing at the church spire. Bells stumbled into alarm as flames tasted old wood. Kale's head snapped toward the village, every nerve a compass. "They moved faster," he said. Mira was already running, boots striking mud, coat flaring like a banner. Kale matched her stride, a guardian and a storm. "This is a trap," Kale warned. "Then spring it," Mira replied. Lio kept pace, small but relentless. "You're not leaving me," Lio declared. Kale wanted to argue with every sentence life had taught him, but the fire wrote its own punctuation. They broke from the trees into the chapel yard where heat licked the sky, and fear gathered like kindling. The rival pack had taken human skins for the assault, faces streaked with ash, eyes more hungry for dominance than blood. Villagers formed a desperate bucket line, chaos humming like a broken hymn. Mira hurled water against the chapel door, while Kale ghosted along the flank, reading every twitch of malice. A leader with a wolf's smile called, "Where is your alpha bride?" Mira, soaked and furious, said, "She left you waiting." The man's laugh was brittle. Kale moved like a shadow given orders, disarming one, then another, binding their wrists with their own belts. "No killing," he murmured, though the urge prowled inside him. The fire hissed back at them, unwilling to surrender. The chapel, stubborn as a vow, refused to fall. Heat bent the air above the nave, distorting the painted saints into ghosts. Inside, candles melted into strange sculptures as smoke curled into the rafters. Mira pushed forward with a wet cloth over her mouth. Kale caught her sleeve, then released it, trust winning by a thread. "I'll get the archives," she said. "They want the records," Kale replied. "They want you," she countered, vanishing into the murk. Outside, Lio corralled children toward the square, his voice sharp as command. "Follow, no arguing." The smallest obeyed, because courage looks taller on young shoulders. In the vestry, Mira found what they were after: brittle deeds, migration marks, and the ancient treaty sealed with a claw-print signature. The paper smelled of centuries and damp earth. A shadow shifted. An ash-faced woman stepped in, knife glinting like a second tongue. "Give them," she demanded. Mira said, "Take me instead," and startled herself with the sincerity. The knife lowered a fraction. Kale appeared in the doorway, voice calm as a held note. "You want a war you cannot survive," he told the intruder. For a breath, peace almost seemed possible. Then a beam above them cracked, splinters falling like warnings from the ceiling. The beam fell like judgment. Kale lunged, dragging both women out as the timber shattered behind them. Fresh air struck like a slap. The rival woman rolled to her feet and fled, leaving a smear of ash across the grass. Mira lay stunned, treaty clutched to her chest as if it could stop bullets. "Are you hurt?" Kale asked. "Only where I loved you," she replied, and his wince showed the wound landed. Lio barreled in with a bucket still on his head, panting. "You found each other," he said. Kale answered, "We lost enough," his eyes on the clawed signature catching the light like an omen. By afternoon, flames were beaten down to sullen red. The rival pack retreated to the tree line, their defeat more postponement than loss. The elders arrived, faces carved from caution and old scars. "They'll return at moonrise," Mira warned. Mira lifted the treaty. "Then we use what they respect, old law." Kale studied her, awe and fear threading his gaze. "You'd stand before them," he asked. "I'll stand where you didn't," she said, then softened. "Stand with me now." He nodded, because the alternative was emptier than death. Around them the town began to rebuild, each hammer strike daring the night to come. Moonrise poured silver over the square, making the cobblestones glint like polished bone. From the tree line, the rival Alpha emerged, a tall man with a smile carved from winter. "Kale," he called, "your heart's distraction is our advantage." Kale opened his mouth, but Mira stepped forward. The treaty rolled like a blade in her hand. "This is older than your greed," she said. The Alpha's eyes shifted to gold, reading her as one might read prey. The crowd tightened its circle. Kale's voice was low. "He's not here for the treaty." Mira said, "Then what?" The Alpha answered for him. For the boy. All heads turned to Lio, whose small hands clenched into something bigger than fear. The revelation spread through the crowd like a shiver. "He is mine," the Alpha said, voice steady as a noose. Mira glanced at Kale, whose jaw locked in admission. "Tell me he's lying," she demanded. Kale said nothing, and silence roared in his place. Lio's face twisted, not in confusion but betrayal. "You knew?" Mira whispered. Kale's eyes dropped. "Blood demands blood," the Alpha said. "Your Alpha has been hiding my heir." Gasps tore through the night. Mira's grip on the treaty loosened, the paper crackling like dry leaves. "Then take me," she said, "but you don't take him." The Alpha's smile sharpened. "You're bargaining from a place already lost." Kale stepped between them, shoulders squared, voice carrying the weight of both man and beast. "He is pack now." The Alpha's chuckle was low and venomous. "You've broken law to keep him. That will cost you everything." Mira's heart pounded so loudly she could almost mistake it for drums. Lio edged behind her, the tremble in his body matching hers. "Old law says the heir chooses," Mira said. Kale's head snapped toward her, hope and terror crossing like swords. The Alpha's golden eyes narrowed. "Say the wrong word, boy, and you seal her fate." The square seemed to shrink until it was only the four of them, and the moon hanging witness above. Lio stepped out from behind Mira, small but steady. "I choose where I'm safe," he said, and took Kale's hand. The Alpha's smile died like a candle in rain. "Then you've chosen exile for him," he said. Kale's grip on Lio tightened, his free hand finding Mira's without looking. "We'll stand together," Mira said, her voice both fragile and unbreakable. The Alpha's gaze swept the crowd. Then the pack will bleed for this. Wolves in the tree line answered with a howl so unified it shook the marrow. Kale pulled both Mira and Lio close, the three of them forming a small island against the tide. The Alpha turned without another word, retreating into the pines, his wolves melting after him like smoke into wind. The crowd's relief was thin, brittle as ice. Kale looked at Mira, but whatever apology he carried stayed behind his teeth. "We have until dawn," he said. "To do what?" Mira asked. "To decide if we run, or if we end this." Lio clung to her side, his trust something heavier than fear. Above them, the moon slid behind a cloud, and the square went darker than it should have. Somewhere in the forest, the howls began again, closer this time, and certain. The night before dawn was thick with the taste of iron and pine. Mira stood at the edge of the square, watching Kale sharpen his blade, the sound harsh in the stillness. "If we run, they'll chase," he said. "If we fight, they'll bleed." Lio sat between them, tracing shapes in the dirt, his small hands unsteady. "What happens if you lose?" he asked. Kale paused, meeting Mira's gaze before answering. "Then you run, and don't look back." The air felt like it was holding its breath. Somewhere in the forest, a single howl cut the night, too close to mistake. The line between choice and fate grew thinner than the edge of Kale's knife. By torchlight, the elders laid out the battle line. "Hold the road, guard the boy," Mira commanded. Kale countered, "We guard each other." Mira took a spear offered to her, its weight pulling her shoulder straight. Lio clung to her coat, silent now, his fear distilled into watchfulness. The rival pack's growls rolled like distant thunder, drawing closer with every heartbeat. Kale moved through the line, touching shoulders, giving nods instead of words. When he reached Mira, he stopped. "If it comes to it, you run with him," he said. She met his stare. "If it comes to it, we run together, or not at all." The first shadow broke from the tree line, and then the night was full of them. Wolves lunged in human and beast forms, claws flashing under moonlight. Kale met the first attacker head-on, steel clashing against teeth. Mira braced her spear, driving back a shape that smelled of wet fur and rage. Lio stayed crouched where she'd told him, eyes darting to every sound. A rival warrior lunged for the boy, and Mira turned, too slow, until Kale's blade intercepted, sparks flaring. "Not him," Kale growled. For a moment, the three of them were a single circle, unbroken despite the chaos pressing in from all sides. The fight turned desperate. Kale shifted mid-strike, fur and muscle overtaking man, his amber eyes burning through the frenzy. Mira fought back-to-back with him, the heat of his shifted form against her spine. A massive wolf slammed into them, sending Mira sprawling. She hit the ground, spear clattering away. The wolf loomed, then yelped as Kale tore it aside, teeth bared. "Get up," he barked, half human in voice, all beast in power. Blood streaked his muzzle, his breath steaming in the cold. She rose, reclaimed her spear, and planted herself at his flank. The pack would not take another step forward without paying for it. The Alpha stepped into the fray, his wolf form towering over the others. "Give me the boy," he snarled. Mira moved in front of Lio, planting her spear like a boundary. Kale stood beside her, chest heaving, half shifted, a creature caught between worlds. "You'll have to kill us both," Kale said. The Alpha smiled, all teeth. Then the howl came, not from him, but from deep within the forest, a sound so ancient it froze every fighter in place. Even the Alpha's ears twitched toward the dark. "That," Kale whispered, "is not one of mine." And just like that, the real enemy announced its arrival. The ancient howl rolled through the clearing, deeper than any wolf's, shaking the ground under their feet. The Alpha's eyes widened, not fear, but recognition. Kale pulled Mira and Lio behind him, voice low. "This isn't our fight anymore, it's everyone's." From the shadows emerged a beast half the size of a cottage, fur blacker than the absence of light, eyes burning silver. The rival pack broke formation, some fleeing, others bowing their heads. Mira gripped her spear tighter. "What is it?" she asked. Kale answered without looking back. "The first alpha." The air itself seemed to bow to the creature's slow, deliberate step forward. The first alpha's gaze swept the field, lingering on Lio until the boy's small frame stiffened under its weight. "Bloodline," the creature rumbled, voice felt more than heard. The rival alpha lowered his head, words trembling in his throat. "We honor the old law." Kale stood taller, even before something that could crush him in a breath. "Then let him choose without fear," Kale said. Mira's hand found Lio's, steadying him. The first alpha's silver eyes narrowed. "Choice is rare, but so is worth." The mist thickened, curling like smoke around their feet. Lio stepped forward, his voice clear despite the tremor in his hands. "I choose them," he said, glancing at Mira and Kale. The first alpha tilted its head, an unreadable gesture. "Then they are yours," it said, "and you are theirs, until the last moon." The rival alpha snarled in protest, but the first alpha's growl silenced him like a blade cutting through breath. Kale exhaled for the first time in minutes. Mira's chest loosened, though the weight of the words "until the last moon" settled heavy in her bones. This wasn't an ending, it was a countdown. The first alpha turned, vanishing into the mist as if the forest swallowed it whole. The rival pack followed, leaving only trampled grass and the echo of paws. Kale dropped to one knee before Lio, hands gripping the boy's shoulders. "You're safe," he said, though his eyes told Mira the price was yet to come. "For now," she added, voice steady but low. The villagers emerged from hiding, carrying torches that painted the square in warm light again. For the first time that night, there was no growl in the air, only the sound of people breathing together. As dawn broke, the forest looked almost harmless, its edges softened by gold light. Mira leaned against the chapel wall, watching Kale speak quietly with the elders. Lio slept wrapped in a blanket beside her, his small hand curled around hers. Kale approached, eyes searching hers for forgiveness she wasn't ready to give. "We'll have to leave before the next full moon," he said. She nodded, staring at the forest. "Then we make these days count." Somewhere beyond the trees, a distant howl rose, not a threat, but a reminder. 3 days later, the village felt like it was holding its breath, every sound softened as if the earth itself feared to wake something sleeping in the woods. Mira walked the chapel grounds with Lio at her side, the boy clutching a stick like a knight's sword, occasionally swinging at invisible enemies. His hair caught in the winter sun, flashes of gold in a gray morning. Kale leaned against the old bell tower, arms folded, gaze fixed on them as if committing every step to memory. "We should leave before the next moonrise," he said, his tone carrying no room for debate. "I know," she replied, her voice quieter than she meant it to be. The wind curled around them, bringing the sharp bite of pine resin and the faint musk of fir. Lio tugged Mira's hand and pointed toward the forest. "It's watching us," he whispered, his breath forming a cloud in the cold. She didn't correct him, because she felt it too, that unseen gaze pressing from the tree line. That night, the tavern held the heat of too many bodies and the weight of too many fears. The elders sat hunched over the long table, their eyes darting toward the frost-rimmed windows with every gust of wind. "The first alpha marked the boy," Mira said, her knuckles white around a mug. "It will return for him." The words dropped like stones into the room's fragile calm. Kale stood apart from them, his shadow stretching across the floorboards, jaw set as if carved from the same wood. "Then we keep moving," he said. "Until when?" Another elder pressed, voice rising. Mira stepped forward, the torchlight glinting off the wet edge in her eyes. "Until we find a place where even legends can't follow." The fire cracked, sending sparks spiraling upward, and for a long tense moment, no one dared answer. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the faint echo of something pacing the edge of the village. On the fourth morning, they packed without speaking much. Lio's belongings fit into a single worn leather pouch, its seams frayed from years of use. Mira knelt to tighten her mother's boots, the cracked leather creaking like old bones. She glanced toward the chapel roof, where the bell, cracked from the fire, swayed faintly with the breeze, each hollow note sounding more like farewell than metal. Cale stood at the road's mouth, scanning the horizon, his stance wide and shoulders tense. He wasn't just looking for danger, he was searching for a way forward that didn't feel like surrender. "You ready?" he asked when Mira approached. She nodded, though her eyes stayed on the village behind them. Every building seemed to watch them leave, knowing they might never come back. They left at first light, frost crunching under their boots with each step. The forest embraced them quickly, its canopy filtering the sunrise into thin, cold beams. Lio walked between them, his small hands finding first Mira's, then Cale's, as if he could keep them both anchored. Birds stayed silent, and even the wind felt restrained. An hour in, a distant howl rose, not angry, but watchful, curling through the trees like smoke. Cale slowed, glancing over his shoulder. "It's him," he said. Mira didn't falter. "Then, let him watch. We'll make it to the next sunrise." The path wound deeper into shadow, their synchronized steps the only sound in a forest that seemed to be listening. By nightfall, they reached a ridge overlooking miles of black wilderness, the forest below breathing mist into the moonlight. But Lio leaned against Mira, already drifting into sleep, his hand still loosely hooked into her coat. Cale stood a few steps ahead, the wind lifting his hair as he scanned the horizon, like a man reading a warning written on the land. "Do you think we'll ever stop running?" Mira asked, her voice barely louder than the rustle of dry grass. Cale didn't turn, his silhouette sharp against the moon. "Only when he finds us." She looked down at Lio's peaceful face, so calm it hurt, then out toward the endless dark. The forest's silence felt too deliberate. She whispered, unsure if she meant it for Cale herself or the night itself. "He already has." Somewhere far below, something answered, a single low howl that curved up toward the ridge like a promise.